Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Briarpatch. A great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So at the beginning, we have Allegra apologizing to AD about kind of where things kind of stood, but then we had the whole conversation about like, all right, so things just don't add up because Lucretia, there's no way she's like the bomber, and there's no way that she ended up being the shooter and stuff like that. Because I guess because in my mind, I immediately assumed that Lucretia was the one behind it, but in the grand scheme of things, it makes sense that it was Jean, and he was just framing Lucretia to do it just because she's so, I guess. That's why that's why last episode I talked about it. I was like, it seemed like Coulter is actually kind of abusive, and so like Lucretia probably like has her moments, but like when he kind of like he acts all meekish and stuff like that, she comes out a little bit more. But I think he kind of sadly beats her down like personality, like, and maybe there's physical abuse, but maybe it's just more like mental and emotional abuse where he makes her feel small. And so maybe that's why she was actually happy about the whole him and Felicity relationship, because it's like, oh, like he found someone that loved him, because it's like, I sure as hell don't love him because of the monster he is. Or maybe it's just because she still kind of does. Regardless, I'm going on a tangent, but it kind of gets in your head about like, now kind of retrospect, it's like, you definitely get the feeling like Jean was the one who actually pulled the trigger, and he framed her for it, which is so sucky. That's probably why she was breaking down crying, because she was like, this is all my fault. Okay, I'll go to jail, but no, I don't want to go to jail for this, but I'm going to do it because that's what you want, Jean. But nevertheless, it's like, if that's so, and for Allegra, it's like none of the timelines add up, because Eve wasn't in town during Felicity's murder. She was during the bomb which struck her, but so it begs the question then, like, okay, so like not everyone, like, so it's like there's no clear-cut picture on who did all this. So obviously she's also dealing with the whole Brattle and Spivey situation, because it's like she wants Ramirez to meet with Jake, but she's got to set up two meetings, because she's got to set up the one with Jake, which she wants Jake to blow him out of the water so that he'll take the deal with Jake. They can send Brattle away, and this could be her way to get away from Cyrus, because Cyrus still owns her and everything. So there's that whole situation. Obviously sets up a meeting between Ramirez and Brattle, sending and I love that whole conversation. Was it Barbara Jean shows up, and just Allegra's just like, and she's like, oh, you're going to come by, right? It's like, right, the reunions tonight and everything, show up and basically talking about her funeral wear to her, basically going like, oh, you could use your outfit as from the funeral wear to being something spectacular to show up in, which she was basically like, go to hell, Barbara Jean. So the meeting between Ramirez and Spivey goes down, and you gotta admit, your boy Jake is super like very energetic and very just kind of smooth talking, like having a lot of fun with Ramirez, and basically explains kind of what went down, like in Al Namor, like basically explaining like, oh yeah, we were there. It's like, well, we weren't officially in Syria in 2012. And he was like, well, I wasn't officially in so-and-so back in, 10th grade, but that didn't stop me from going around telling people I wasn't a virgin anymore. So basically saying like super low key we were there, basically giving like weapons and help to the rebels, while also skimming a little off the top to help ourselves. But then they were told those rebels were not who they were supposed to be. So basically they went in, killed them, but then it turns out, oh, they weren't the bad guys like we thought they were. And then like, Ramirez brings up like this whole mass grave situation, and it's like, oh, you did it? He's like, no, I mean that's the thing about Brattle, he never actually pulls the trigger himself. It's like, so he kind of told you to. It's like, no, he manipulates you and gets you to believe like, oh, this is what he wants done, before he actually has to tell you what needs to be done. And obviously Ramirez kind of switches everything to be like, oh, so you just admitted to that mass grave thing. He's like, no, the hell I did not. He's like, the fact is he's trying to think of like, oh, there's all this stuff in Yemen. Like, I just got to remember the date and stuff. Ramirez had made up his mind in that very moment. Because I actually like what Jake was saying. Because Jake was like, no, you could go with Brattle and they'll get all the Wall Street guys on your side. But me, what I got to tell you, it's going to get Joe Popcorn. So basically, Brattle's going to get like the more higher up people, maybe like the 1%ers to care about your story. But me, I'm going to get your average American to pay attention. I give you such a sexy story that average Americans going to be like, oh my God, we're going to go for Ramirez. Like, that's what I kept missing. Like, he's going for the presidency. I thought he was trying to get reelected as senator. It's like, no, he's trying to get to the presidency. Like, of course, it's about climbing the hierarchy and everything like that. But it's like, now in the grand scheme of things, it's like, that kind of all blew up in their faces now because like Ramirez doesn't want to take Jake because it's like, oh, because Jake's story is literally too depressing. It's like, oh, I can't just sell that to the American people. Brado knows how to spin a story a better way than what he does. But it's like, and poor Allegra kind of slipped up. She's like, you need to give us a chance. And then Cyrus completely jumps on that. Us? Nah, you gonna keep up that deal with Brado. So, so that kind of, obviously Jake got super pissed off because for him, it's just like, now that bastard Brado's gonna win. And Jake's gonna be the one that takes the fall for everything that Brado did, And obviously for Allegra, this was her one shot too. This is both of their shots to kind of get everything that they wanted her to get from underneath Cyrus, for him to kind of be able to do the good that he wants to do. We'll get to that in a second, but and now it's like, and I even like that line from Jake being like, why is it that I've become super rich, you become fancy, 20 years later we're kind of back here being screwed over by blue bloods. And I'm like, it is kind of it's sad to kind of see everything kind of come so sadly full circle. Like no matter how much you climbed up the ladder, you still kind of find yourself back here even after everything that you guys have been through, all the growth you've done. It almost kind of amounted to nothing. It's kind of like the sad truth of it is. So the whole plan is, well, we got to take Brado out now. In particular, they're planning on taking Brado because you have Brado, you control the whole situation. I mean, that's why Ramirez wants him in the first place. So it's like, if they can get Brado, they can control the narrative and the situation and kind of get what they want. It's like I guess he'll be their bargaining chip to get what they want. And it's like, at the end of the day, we have Clyde, you don't, so you're going to need us to get him. You meet our demands, then you can get Brado, and lo and behold, we all kind of walk away winner, and obviously they bring in the extra guns, and that's Eve, and it's like, oh, she's like, good, finally brought her up to speed about everything. Now it's interesting because like the whole Eve and Allegra situation, because she's like, yeah, I'm sorry about the whole thing about your sister. That investigation was a very complicated thing. Basically, like, to kind of simmer things down, you needed someone to take the fall for it. So Felicity ended up being that person. It's interesting because she's like, Felicity is always someone that was dear to her. So, and it was interesting when she kind of broke it down. Like, basically, this thing between her and Jake, this ain't like a recent thing. It seems like this has been years in the making. Because for her, she's like, I came to this town because she wanted a challenge, and the fact of the matter is the mayor is a clown serving vampires. That being the God, what's their faces? Like from last episode where she's trying to take the position of mayor, but they were like, no, we're the ones that decide who gets to be mayor, because it's like that. They're backing the current mayor just because it's like it fits their needs more, and it's like those are the vampires she was referencing, senior and junior, and so. For her, it's just like that's why she worked with Jake, because Jake has his own plans for making this place better, just like she does. So like they're both trying to bring some good to this town in their own ways. So it had him buy up as much as Packingtown, but obviously he can't get what he needs. He can't get all the money he really needs to kind of make everything go through, because he needs to be he needs his immunity first before he can get access to all that money to kind of do good with it. So that's what this was all about. Like, they set this whole thing in motion to kind of draw Brado in and use this as a chess piece move against someone like Allegra. Now, whether they knew it would actually be Allegra, that's a whole other story. But the fact of the matter is, it turns into a situation of like, okay, but like she's like, Felicity, I had nothing to do with her death. Like, basically, her death is on my conscience, but not on my hands. And obviously Allegra's like, how could I ever trust you? And Eve's like, I kind of don't even think I like you. But when it's all said and done, when this is all done, I will tell the truth about the kind of cop Felicity was. So then Eve is talking about bringing someone in. I was like, oh, please don't tell me you're going to bring in Jean. I was like, oh, that sucked. Especially because she's like, oh, Jean, you don't need to be here. Take some time off. The fact of the matter is, recover after everything you've been through. I was like, please. Like, she had said that earlier, but I was like, please don't bring Jean in on this. I was like, because she's bringing someone in. It was interesting too because Jake actually had a phone that allowed him to contact Clyde, and I like that explanation of him being. She's like, you've had this the entire time. For him, it's like it's not something he does so freely. Like, this is kind of a last ditch effort, because for him it's like basically so many people, he's like, me and Clyde were a bad combination, and the fact is there's so many people that try to get away from him because they don't want to get away from him, so that's kind of the danger of it all. So this is kind of for Jake, kind of like basically stepping into the lion's den again. So even to the point he literally had it frozen in a large block of ice. That was really interesting. So ultimately they need to draw Brattle out ahead of time. It's like, how do we do that? A big open spot needs to be fancy. Oh, that good old reunion that's happening, which obviously, Allegra's not too happy about being dragged to that thing. So at the same time this is happening, you have AD at Cindy's. She's cleaning up Harold's blood, which is depressing as hell, because he's looking into the bomb situation. And even while he's helping clean up, he's like, yeah, I'm so sorry about your boyfriend. And basically it was just kind of like a no titles type of situation between them. It's like, yeah, I mean, he's like, did Harold have anything to do with bomb? She's like, whoa, are you asking if he had anything to do with, like, he was some bomber or something? He's like, what? No. But you think anyone did? She's like, the fact is Harold did a lot of stuff, but that's because people wanted him to do it and they hated him for it. But she's basically saying that he had nothing to do with the bombs and stuff like that. And then she brings up Tar, and AD's like, what are you talking about? She's like, from the explosion. He's like, there was no, like, tar smell, and he's referencing Strucker, but she's like, oh yeah, the first bomb. And then she brings him her clothes, and it's like, there was tar on it. And that immediately, and it gets answered later in the episode, but even then I was immediately like, there are two different bombers. I was like, that's interesting. Because, with this type of thing, it's kind of like the not pathology, but like the thing, like people like in that situation, bombers in particular, are very consistent. Once again, this is from my years of watching crime shows. Basically, they have a very set pattern of how they do things. So if the first bomb involved tar, then the second bomb would too. So the fact is that it didn't mean like, wait, there was another bomber involved. And so that was kind of an interesting thing, because even Allegra was like, yeah, when I got out of the hospital, my clothes, they gave me back my clothes, they didn't smell like tar. So it's like that signifying it was two different bombs. And obviously Allegra wasn't too happy about being at the spot, but it is neat that she's like partying it up with Jake and everything. And I love he's joking about like, oh yeah, that guy that's most likely to see it. It's like, yeah, he got fat and everything. And then there's the whole situation with him looking at her and being like, oh yeah, you probably don't want to dance, would you? And she just kind of looks at him like, and next thing we see is them dancing. I love him being like, yeah, the fact of the matter is I've been around this like pretty badass, awesome person this entire time, and I've never tried to kiss her. And she's like, yeah, because if you tried, I would have ripped your head off. And I love him be like, what a way to go. I was like, that's pretty neat. Rewinding things a little bit, obviously there was a whole thing with Gene that I was like, oh god, I was like, oh, this isn't gonna be good. We see him at the station, I'm like, oh please Eve, don't tell me. But Home Dude leads him somewhere, and I'm like, why is he in that closet room? I was like, is Eve gonna meet with him away from everyone that invite him in the operation? And then he gets closed in there after he gets a text at like 10 p.m. you're up, and then like he gets locked in. I was like, wait. I was like, does that mean Eve knows about him? I was like, wait, what? Like, I was like, did I miss something? How did she know? It turned, well, I'm skipping around a little bit. She's known for months that he was the bad guy. I actually felt so bad for Home Dude, because like they took down Brattle's other guys. It's interesting because like Sydney, for example, was super against this whole thing, because it's like, I thought Spivey was supposed to have your mark on him, not the other way around. Because saying like, the fact of the matter is that it's supposed to be a situation where Brattle has control over Jake, that basically Brattle kind of said something that Jake kind of can't help himself but kind of follow through. Not that it would happen the other way around. And obviously Brattle did not like that comment. But because it does seem like the fact is the moment like Jake called, you dropped everything. Because even Cindy had brought it up last episode to that, the fact of the matter is no one hates Jake. Even Clyde isn't immune to that. He likes Jake a lot, despite their complicated history. It's like, this dude betrayed you 7 years ago, yet you're still not 100% wanting him dead. You're now showing up because he asked you to show up. Like, it is kind of an interesting situation. But, sadly, the moment, like, Gene was looking up and he saw the air vent and everything, like, and you hear the what ends up being rats, I'm like, he's gonna find a way out. And he does. He kills that cop, and he's got Eve, and she's like, oh, I've known for months who you are, because he's like, I'm a good cop. I'm like, how can you suggest that considering you're a dirty cop, a hired gun? I'm wondering, like, how far back does his history with Brattle go? Like, has he always been one? Like, has he always been, like, a cop and that? Was it actually maybe once upon a time he was a good cop, but then he went and moonlights as an assassin? Or was he an assassin moonlighting as a cop? I assume it was the former and not the latter, because he says a line of, like, I was a good cop, I'm a good cop. And it's like, how can you say that after everything you've done? You know, because without a doubt, you're the one that pulled the trigger on Harold. You've been trying to kill Spivey. So that also means that's probably why she was there, which is like, oh, Jean, get out here. I got things covered here, because she knew, like, she already knew at that time who Jean really was. So she ended up saving Spivey's life in that moment. Like, I wondered, Jean must, I mean, how did Jake know the entire time, or has Eve always kind of played that very close to the vest, knowing that he was dirty? Maybe, like, I guess home dude that she brought with her that's dead now, I think he's the only other person that probably knew about Jean being dirty, but regardless. So, you know, they end up in a fight. Luckily, Eve was able to kind of hide herself away inside the van, and because, you know, he was on a time crunch, so Jean left her alive. The fact is, we never cut back to it, but I almost was worried, did like one bullet sneak in there, because I was wondering, did he shoot her or not? But at the same time, you know, it's like it's time for things to kind of get down to business. I should really quickly circle back around to like Allegra bringing the whole bomb situation up to Jake. It's like, would a bomber use two different things? It's like, no, like that kind of, unless it's two different people, because Tar would insinuate like C4, and then like the other bomb not smelling like anything must mean that like certain things weren't added to the explosive or whatever. So. And obviously Jake's a little nervous about this whole situation. It's like, you know, it's Clyde time. So, and Allegra kind of kisses him, kind of giving him. But part of my brain to me was like, oh God, the fact that you kissed him makes me. Because I already had a feeling. I was like, oh, Clyde. I mean, Clyde's going to kill. He's going to kill Jake, because that's what I thought. That was the whole thing. I thought that was like the whole setup with Gene in the first place. I thought that he was going to be there to kill Jake, but it's like, well, to be fair, he's failed literally every other time, because even because we at least know that history goes back at least over a year, because Clyde had brought up the fact is that him and Jake, I mean that that he had someone in town for over a year, and not being able, no one could lay a hand on him. On Jake, because obviously, like, despite that complicated situation, like, Brattle's like praising Jake, being like, you're so awesome, like none of my men can hold a candle to you, you know. And it's like, oh, you went to Ramirez. It's like, I figured you would, but like I said earlier, he's like, you can't spin a story like I can, because the story needs a hero. So Brattle's going to spin the whole thing and make himself out the hero and make Jake the villain, because you didn't just, like, it's not just the whole thing of like, oh, here's an atrocity. You need to be able to spin it in a very positive light, kind of makes things very digestible. So for Brattle, it's like, I'm the hero, and here's the terrible things that Jake, the terrible things that Jake did, which Jake did do everything, but Clyde is just as responsible because Jake was the gun and Brattle pulled the trigger, you know, type of situation. Even though, like, he'll try and deny it and kind of play coy about the whole situation. But I like that whole thing, too, of, like, Barbara Jean. So I know, that was pretty badass of her kind of on the mic. I wasn't expecting that. But what was pretty dope is, like, her walking by, kind of giving them the looks, and Brattle's almost looking like, ew, what the fuck just happened, you know? But it seems like, you know, and even threatening Allegra, like, oh, if you step foot in his room, I'm going to kill everyone in here. So, but also making it clear, oh, I'm not going to kill you, Jake. The fact of the matter is, I'm going to destroy you, because this is personal for him. It's like, you betrayed me, and I took your money. I took your basically your reputation, and he's like, I'm going to take everything from you and leave you destroyed, because you know, this is all personal about, like, Jake betraying him and everything. And obviously Jake gets knocked out, and you know, Brattle's taking him with him. At the same time, Allegra comes out, because like basically that bus had exploded, and what's his face, Gene had done. Even in that moment, it didn't click in my head until I love that moment of Allegra running into him. It's like, Gene, what happened? She's like, you just got here? He's like, yeah, a whole bunch of people trampling on me and all that crazy. And she's like, and she brings up the tar. I'm like, oh, you're the bomb. Because it didn't correlate in my head to think that, like, I thought that was just him doing a thing. It didn't correlate in my head that, like, oh, he used an explosive. He's the bomber. But now it's like, wow. I was like, so you're the one that killed Felicity. You're up there claiming that you love Felicity, but Felicity never loved him. She was just investigating him. I mean, the sad thing is, Gene probably did love Felicity, but he probably killed her for a multitude of reasons. One, had to kill her because Brattle probably was like, oh, like, she's looking into you, so take care of her. Or he did that because he found out that it was also probably a combination of she found out about what he was up to, but also the thing of, how dare you break my heart? You were using me the entire time. It's just like, man. And him just doing all this, talking at her funeral and everything, it's just like, jeez, it just kind of almost it disgusts you in retrospect to be like, man, what an asshole. Like, that he was the one kind of responsible for all this, so. Well, once again, not everything, because he's killed Felicity, but he wasn't responsible for the second bomb, which begs the question, who the hell was responsible for the second bomb and why? Now, part of me was like, you don't think this has... there's some part of me that's like, you don't think the second bomb was AD. AD might not have had anything to do with Felicity's death, but maybe he had something to do with the second bomb. But I would assume that it would have something to do with, like, the business that... I don't know. Because not unless Brattle did that too, but it's like... That's why I'm kind of like, I don't know. Maybe that's why AD... Maybe he claimed, like, oh, like, he didn't want Allegra to go with him because, like, oh, I just didn't trust him. Like almost insinuating, like, something would have happened to Allegra, like, almost like Home Dude would have killed her. But it's like, what if AD was the second bomber? Maybe he had his own reasoning behind that, which would make this sad considering the fact that him and Allegra are getting close and everything. But it's like, that's where my mind immediately goes. That's where my current theory. We'll kind of have to wait and see on that. But I just keep halfway expecting, I'm like, are we going to find out some dirt about AD or something? Because it seems like, because like, who else is there to really suspect? Like, I don't think Brattle would be the one behind that. Not unless it was Eve. Not unless it has to do with, what was it? What those dudes' name again? Like the ones that Eve describes as vampires. They're the Staghorns, right? And then their name. Not unless they were behind that. I guess there's a good strong possibility. It might have been like the mayor doing it on behalf of them. But it's like, I mean, who else would be an explosive expert? I mean, that might be where they're also playing. Like if it was AD, his last name is Singe and everything. So that might have been just kind of a play on. I don't know. I mean, the fact is, like, not unless it's supposed to deceive you by having him investigate things because, well, sometimes bad people become a part of the investigation to make themselves seem less suspicious. So that's a possibility too. But regardless, Allegra ends up getting chloroform, so both her and Jake are being taken by Spivey. No, I mean, her and... Jeez, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Jake and Allegra are being taken by Clyde, which... now leaves him free up to meet up with Ramirez and kind of spin the tale the way he wants to. So, but now I'm also thinking, not unless this is Cyrus, because what reason would Cyrus have to? It wouldn't even have to be Felicity. Like, what would Cyrus' reasoning be to go after Strucker? That's why I'm like, because I kept forgetting Strucker's name in that moment. I just remembered it. Like I said, I've been a little all over the place with this recording. I do apologize, but I was like I said, it's just like currently AD's kind of my top suspect for Strucker's bombing. We'll see if that ends up being the case or not, or if there's going to be an extra twist to that. We'll see, but things don't look good. So I'm curious to kind of see how all this ends up playing out going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.